Hi, hi. Yeah, so Linda Hidemaka wanted me to talk a little bit about anxiety and about what it's like to come out of isolation and the terror and the fear that's coming up for people trying to go back into back out there, right? And that there's a lot of trepidation. Not just that, there's actually a lot of physiology, anxious physiology, anxiety, and even an intergenerational terror about coming out of confined spaces because we've been kind of confined to a safe space, right? And then we would go back out there where the perpetrator is, where the big COVID is. So if you have had a history of genocidal uh, abuse, intergenerational abuse, or sexual abuse, it's not at all unusual that your anxiety levels would be extremely high about actually reintegrating, going out there, because COVID is still out there, the perpetrator's still out there. And we're asking people to come out of their safe spaces. So I would expect that to be quite loud, the anxiety to be quite loud. I think it's really important that we build a relationship with that anxiety that's sitting there. Now, and also to know that it's also a teacher, right? Our anxiety isn't there for no reason. It's an intergenerational knowing. But I wanted to say just how loud it is. And give an example of how loud it is, especially in our children. I want to say that again. A story about my grandson last week. He was terrified of writing all of a sudden. I mean, it was never always that easy for him to write anyway, and once he gets through the first anxious bit about writing, he writes beautiful pieces, but he always has this little bit of anxious up front. But this last week, it wasn't a little bit of anxious. It was huge. It was so big that he actually fell on the floor and had an anxiety attack, saying he couldn't breathe, thinking he was dying. It was like really serious. And I looked at that. I looked at him there on the floor, and as he was going through this anxiety, and I thought about his DNA, his blood memory, and that he's a descendant of slavery, and what would happen to people long time ago, not that long ago actually, unfortunately, that if you were a slave and you could read and write, it could mean your death. You know, if you could read and write, you had to keep that in secret often because it could cost you your life. And he was just role playing that same kind of, it was like an overlay to his history that he was expressing there. But he didn't know his history, how important it is that we know our history and that we build a relationship with that anxiety. Whether it's a history of child sexual abuse or a history of genocide. For my poor little grandson, not poor because he has a history of genocide on all sides pretty well, but thank goodness, because he'll know what to do about that. So shouldn't say poor Jackson. I should say, well, Jackson, you're going to have to build a relationship with your intergenerational horrors so that they can be your teachers, right? And the best thing I could do for him is help him find his tree. There's a tree that's close by, and he goes to that tree and he holds onto that tree and he climbs that tree, and when he's climbing the walls with anxiety, I have him go out and climb the tree. Climb the tree, climb whatever you can, go climb that. But know too that the oppression was a confinement. Oppression confined us to spaces, and some of them were, like little tiny space, semi-safe spaces, like even the reserves where you were confined, right? Residential school, confined. So whenever, and COVID, we are confined. So when you have that confinement, you have that intergenerational anxiety that's going to be very, very loud. And so to build a good relationship with that is really important. And if we just even take a moment to befriend it, because it's not our enemy, that anxiety actually tells us what to do and where to move and what to do next. I was talking with another colleague, with Amy, where she says her lungs, when she comes out of confinement, her lungs tell her which way, her breathing tells her whether it's safe to go this way or that way, right? So that knowing, that bodily knowing, is not your enemy, it's also your instructor. It's your body wisdom. It's your intergenerational knowledge. And I'm not sure what our dear Jackson is going to do with this intergenerational knowledge about the dangers. But I hope he'll figure that out. And with help, by leaning into land and talking about his history and knowing what happened, it might relieve that enough so that he could be in relationship with it, enough to be able to recognize it when it's loud and see if there's something, some medicines there or something there. And I noticed that for him, it was the tree, but it also was water. And I know way back there, people went to the water all the time. So when his anxiety gets really loud about writing, because he's in a confined space like the slaves that his ancestors were, are, that he needs, I'm going to use a wet towel to help him with that, help the water to help him be in good relationship and in right relationship with that intergenerational anxiety, which is huge and loud as we're trying to come out of confinement. So it takes a lot of courage to come out. We know that as sexual abuse survivors, as a daughter of a pedophile. It took a lot of courage to come out of isolation and back into the world. And so some of that anxiety and hard work memory is up right now. And I just am ever so tender with it and very sweet on it. It's not there to hurt me. I'm just keeping it, it's keeping me company, and I'm keeping it company. Because that's our experiential knowledge. Again, that's from our experiencing, our intergenerational experiencing. We never want to lose that. If we could just be quiet for a bit together and just take a moment and just sort of settle into our bodies and take a deep breath and see if you can find where that vicarious and intergenerational anxiety sits in your body, because it's there for all of us that have ever gone through anything. Just to really notice where your body experiences that. Is that in your throat? Is that down in your belly? Is that, I notice mine is a bit down in my belly right now. How is it sitting in your body there? That the anxiety about coming back into the world when the enemy is still out there. That's the anxiety we're talking. COVID is still out there, and we're asked to step out a bit. Where is that living in you? Our ancestors lived that too. They had to come out with the enemy still there. Just to really be tender and know that that's real. It's really, really real. And it's not your enemy. It just helps teach you where to walk and what step to take next and how to move forward and still be cautious. Just to really be honoring and kind and gentle with that place in you. It doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be in right relations with you. There's nothing to do here with that other than to honor it sweetly, very, very sweetly, with the utmost intergenerational kindness that you can even imagine. To be ever so tender and trust yourself and have the courage to walk out gently, being careful, wearing your masks and all the things that you need to cleaning your hands, all those things you need to do because the enemy is still out there. And it takes courage to come out. It always took courage to come out. You're so intergenerationally courageous. You have made it through pandemics many, 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 many times. And some of us are carrying it for others. We're carrying their anxiety with them and for them. Like my little grandson is carrying it for his father who can't afford to be anxious right now. He has to be solid so that he can help all the families that he's helping. Everybody's coming to him for help, right? So he must stay solid. So his little boy does that much more. Our children are so beautiful. They're doing so much of this for us. Just be kind to those children. Know that they're climbing the walls with purpose. Take them to the tree, take them to the water. You know, smudge a lot. Do all that you can with those children that are carrying the anxiety for the communities that they live in. Be kind to yourself. Anxiety is not your enemy, but it's been walking with you for a long, long time. It's not all yours. It's vicarious, it's intergenerational. It's an experiencing through time. Walk out slowly. Keep safe out there, but move yourself forward. Miigwech. Let me know if this is helpful, and if there's another topic you want. I'll keep doing this as long as it's something you're asking for. Miigwech, everybody.